Steve Sally for BridgeTV. We're here live at the Roy Hastick Foundation. This is a culmination of Mr. Hastick's career, his outstanding career as an entrepreneur and business person. He first started CCC 80, the Caribbean Chamber of Commerce, and his daughter, Camille, is taking his legacy and now creating the Roy Hastick Foundation.
The importance for tonight is we're celebrating the life of my dad, Roy Hastick, who has been a legend and an icon in the community for over 40 years, who has helped small business owners in economic development. And we're continuing the legacy tonight in launching our family foundation, the Hastick Foundation. We cannot forget Mom, who is a trailblazer in herself as well, who wrote the social work bachelor's program at Medgar Evers College, and will bring in the family aspect and also philanthropic aspect of this foundation.
Welcome to the celebration of life and launch of Dr. Roy and Eda Hastick's foundation. We are here for them because they were always here for us. That's why we're here. 3 years later, that's why we're here. 3 years later, that's why their daughters were asked, please do something for Roy. But of course, you know, during the pandemic, everything had to be shut down. You couldn't even have a real funeral. I think they said there were only, 9 or 10 people that were allowed to be there. For Dr. Roy Hastick, that's ridiculous. So we're so glad that you are here, because yes, I did know him, I did love him and his wife.
So Lord, here we are one more time, rejoicing for another day that thou hast made. We have come to be glad in it. Thank you for this occasion. Thank you for the Hastick family. My God, thank you for the blessing of the memory that you have given unto us, that we can look back and to remember all that they mean to us.
Okay, it's now time to acknowledge our office holders.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here to honor and celebrate the incredible life and work of Dr. Roy Hastick and Eda Hastick. I want to congratulate everyone involved in launching this foundation that will continue to uplift, empower our community, to network, to convene and support people, to mentor, and to build a brighter future for our city. I had the privilege of meeting Dr. Hastick, and actually both doctors, in 2014. And when I decided to run for district attorney in 2016, Dr. Hastick supported me, as they did for so many. They brought me together with members of the community to connect, to build understanding, and to build trust. In my last conversation with Dr. Hastick, and I know that Renee and Camille and Yolanda know this, I spoke to him a mere week before he passed. It was during the height of the COVID pandemic, and I was in my house concerned about my mom. My mom is 85 years old. I was worried about her. Taking care of an elderly parent during the pandemic was difficult. And we had a long conversation. And during that conversation, he urged me to be careful. He urged me to keep my mom inside, to take good care of her, and to make sure she was safe. What he failed to mention is that as he was talking to me, he was already sick. He had already started to experience COVID symptoms. He was actually just out of the hospital, from what I've learned. That selflessness and concern for others is his hallmark. It was a hallmark of a truly genuine human being that cared for others and worked to build a better thing. It struck me after Camille called and Yolanda called me and let me know of his passing, that I had about a 20-minute conversation with him, and never once did he speak about himself or Dr. Eda Hastick, but just worried about my mother.
Brooklyn Navy Heart, this is such a beautiful, beautiful event. I want to thank the Hastick family for putting this together, inviting all of us to celebrate the Doctors Eda and Roy Hastick, and for their work, their legacy. Everybody has a little story. I like to think that I was Dr. Roy Hastick's favorite elected official. He was my mentor, and he was really big in supporting and pushing me as it relates to minority and women business enterprise. It's been some time, and this year we've really been able to push a lot of legacy bills, landmark bills, that will lift the barriers and making sure that we, minorities and women, have access to the economic pie and bringing equity. And it was Dr. Roy Hastick's vision. It was Dr. Roy Hastick's vision to also bring everybody together, from all Caribbean islands, from all West Indian islands, and he was very, very inclusive.
I am so honored to be able to speak for a few minutes about Dr. Roy Hastick, who is from the best island in the Caribbean, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. I know I just made some people mad, it's all good. But no, when I always say when I was growing up, there were certain names that rung very loud in my household, and Roy Hastick was one of them. But thankfully, he did not just keep his sphere of influence in the community of Grenada. He made sure that all Caribbean islands were included, and all of Brooklyn, all of New York City. His impact has been felt, and it's just an amazing thing to be able to celebrate his life and his work now. When I saw the networking works, I heard his name, I heard his voice in my head saying that thing over and over and over again. And what a great thing to have a foundation like this to continue the legacy of one Dr. Hastick, and to be able to give flowers to another Dr. Hastick for the work that she's been doing for such an awesome time.
Well, the launch of the Hastick Family Foundation is really a wonderful milestone in what's been a Hastick tradition of giving back to the larger community. Roy Hastick was an incredible leader in the business community and community affairs for the Caribbean American community. He was such an impactful leader here in Brooklyn and really all across New York City. Eda Hastick, always by his side, helped him to launch CACCI, the Caribbean American Chamber of Commerce and Industry, a great leader in her own right in higher education, her great leadership at Medgar Evers College. So, unfortunately, we lost Roy a few years ago. Eda is still with us and going strong. And the launch of the Family Foundation in their name will enable the community to continue to benefit from this great tradition of giving back that the Hastick family has been all about.
There isn't a place across New York that you can go and you mention the name Hastick that someone doesn't have a feel-good story. When I met Drs. Hastick, they embraced me. Dr. Roy Hastick used to always fuss with me. He wanted me to do things that I did not think I was capable of doing, but he always showed me that you were capable. And that's what he instilled in many of us, many of my colleagues who are here. He taught us that to be proud of where we came from and always show everyone where we go that we are capable. We are not going to take a back seat, and that's what he continued to instill in us.
Roy was my mentor. I think every position and everything that I've done in my professional career, Roy had a hand in. A hand in my election to the Civil Court, hand in my election to the Supreme Court, a hand in talking about my going to the Appellate Division. And unfortunately, didn't have an opportunity to see me become the 81st Corporation Counsel of the City of New York, and the first woman of color to have done that. But I know that where he is, he would have been very proud of that.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Unlike my colleagues, I'll be very brief and say thank you so much to the Hastick family for your contributions, for giving Roy to us and Dr. Hastick, and also for bringing this foundation, the world, into birth. Thank you so much. Good night.
So my fondest memory of Dr. Hastick was when I was running for district attorney. He told me that when you help build a small business, you help build a family. And when you build a family, you build a community. And when you build that community, you build a legacy. Today, Dr. Hastick and Eda, we're building that legacy together by creating this foundation. And I'm just really grateful for all that you've done for the people of Brooklyn, especially from people from Caribbean backgrounds, connecting us, networking us, and making our community a better one, and as district attorney, obviously a safer one.
My name is Anita Taylor, and I'm the proud district director to a proud Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. Unfortunately, she could not be here today because of our obligations in DC. However, she wanted me to come this evening to congratulate the Life of Hastick Foundation on their launch today. We are happy that this organization will continue Dr. Hastick's legacy, who was a mentor to the Congresswoman, who was a mentor to me. This foundation will be able to give scholarship and continue the legacy of the small business. As Dr. Hastick used to say, network works. Congresswoman Clarke would like to congratulate today the honorees by presenting a congressional proclamation to each of the honorees. Honorees, this is not to say that job well done. This is to say, continue doing what you're doing to elevate our community.
I want to thank all of you for coming out today to give me this award on honoring of my father, Kenton Kirby. I would not be who I am today if it wasn't my father. Whether it's fitness, whether it's skydiving, aerobics, track and field, being a motivational speaker, this would not have happened. I want to say thank you so, so much. He was a legend. He still is a legend. And I want you guys to know that by all of you coming here tonight, I'm so honored.
And I want to present this New York State legislative resolution. And this is commending the Drs. Roy and Eda Hastick upon the occasion of hosting the celebration for the life of Dr. Roy A. Hastick on the event July 13, 2023. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I do want to let you know this is more than just an award printed in my office. In fact, it wasn't printed in my office. This is a legislative resolution, which means the New York State Senate paused in its deliberations to commemorate the lives of the Drs. Hastick, this event, and the important work that you're doing. Thank you for all that you do.
This is Steve Salian, guest commentator for TheBridgeTV. I'm here tonight at the Roy Hastick Foundation event, which is a launch event celebrating the legacy of Roy Hastick. I'm also here with Kevin Johnson, formerly and of Crystal Manor, Crystal Development. Kevin, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I specifically flew in for this event. My very first internship was at CACCI.
Wow.
I credit with Dr. Hastick and the board and the team with my success, so I had to be here tonight to support the family. Just elated to be back in New York.
Yeah, I mean, Camille Hastick, daughter of Roy Hastick, is carrying on the legacy and creating the Roy Hastick Foundation. This is outstanding. I've long admired the career of Mr. Hastick and what he's invested, what he's done for the Caribbean community and the business community, and we hope the foundation, we're certainly going to support it, right?
Absolutely.
In carrying on that legacy of support and investment in the business community.
Today is important, especially for Dr. Hastick, being his son-in-law. One of the main things that he focuses network, and this is kind of why we're building this particular organization so we can continue his legacy in networking.
My grandpa was super important in our lives, and every single time we went to his house, he would always give us money even if we didn't ask for it. He was always so sweet.
One of my best memories of Dr. Roy Hastick was being at his meetings with my father. Again, I was young. I was probably like maybe 13 years old when I first went to the first meeting. But when I seen he had so many people of color that own businesses in the same room willing to do business with each other, that really made me feel like, there's a place for someone of color to do business in Brooklyn, that there's a network of people that we can work with and network with. And he was the one who put us all together in that room.
Yeah, our background is with Roy and the whole Caribbean, and then the Caribbean diaspora. So we love what he's been able to accomplish here, and we want to help continue that legacy.
Good to see you, Dr. Hastick. And good evening to everyone. I want to really thank, in the spirit of Dr. Hastick, for when I moved from the U.S. Virgin Islands in 1999 to attend Bible school here in New York City. In my first couple of years of university in Bible school and seminary, I got ordained to pastor a local church in East Flatbush. And Dr. Hastick, one of the members of our church, told me that there is a gentlemen from the Caribbean who you can write. I was doing a youth conference and say you can write to this individual so that they can give you funding. And I put together a letter not knowing Dr. Hastick, and I wrote a nice letter to Dr. Hastick to receive some funding for a project that I did. And that was one of the best rejection letters that I ever had written back to me. It was good because he could have ignored my letter, but he wrote back and encouraged me in the sense that, number one, yes, young man, I love what you're doing. I keep doing the work for the Lord, but I can't support you at this point in time. But it encouraged me that, you know, after a couple of years later, he did give me an award for business in Brooklyn. And so today, in honor of the Dr. Roy's and Eda Hastick Foundation, I would like to pay forward and donate $1,000 to the organization because I believe that the work that he poured into all of us is very important. And so one day I was home and he said to me, why don't you come to my house because I have a delegation from Barbados at his house. And he asked me, he said, Reverend, why don't you say a prayer? He said, Reverend, why don't you say a prayer? So I did a prayer. And lo and behold, she is the Prime Minister of Barbados today, and I prayed for that lady at Dr. Roy Hastick's house. So he always was in a sense of greatness. So on behalf of myself and my family and my church, Mount Zion Church of God 7-Day, I'd like to donate $1,000, and thank you so much and for everything that you do. Thank you again.
In my faith, there's a blessing that we make on an extraordinary day like tonight. Blessed be God Almighty that we've reached today's date and today's gathering. How proud am I as a Brooklynite to be here with Dr. Eda Hastick, with Camille, Renee, as they start beginning to start this foundation which will continue the work of Dr. Hastick. I don't think there's anyone in this room that his life wasn't impacted by the work and the vision of this great man. A man of love, a man of faith, a man of equality, justice for all, a man who brought communities together. People forget, in the 1991, when we had some temporary racial fighting going on in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, it was Dr. Roy Hastick, working along with Congresswoman Major Owens, who came in as a wind. He came in as a soul from God, and he made peace in that community. And to this day, Crown Heights is a beacon of unity and hope and love, just like Brooklyn is. So I just want to end with a prayer. May Dr. Hastick's soul rest in a beautiful place as he continues to watch over us, all of us, whether we're Jewish, whether we're Christian, whether we're black, whatever we are, that his soul be blessed. And we are so blessed that we are with him tonight, with the Hastick family. Camille, I know how much work you did, Camille, Renee, and God bless you for the work that you do. And I don't want to say that I'm pledging $1,000, but I'm telling you, I have to compete with my friend Monroe's. That is, I'm going to match at least $1,000, okay? So you started something going. So that's a beautiful thing, okay? God bless, and God bless America.
Scripture that I want to read in honor of tonight. Philippians 2nd chapter, 3rd verse. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Now, why did I choose that? If you ever went to a CACCI recognition event and the 30 honorees were lined up, ready to get honored by Dr. Roy Hastick, he'd have a personal story to say about each and every one of them. And every one of those stories reflected on the goodness and the greatness of who they were. And I remember when I was 20 some odd years old and started to go to the CACCI recognition events, we'd sit there and wonder, why are we going to be there so long? And it's in retrospect that we realize, because it was in his humility that he recognized everybody else in the room.
It's a very deep honor and pleasure to be able to make a contribution and support Roy Hastick's foundation. I met him over 15 years ago, and he has nothing been more but beautiful, accommodating, very supportive, and very influential in terms of knowledge. I learned a lot, and unfortunately, the last time I saw him was at his house when we had a sort of like a tete-a-tete with some government ministers from Barbados and Guyana and Trinidad. But we continue, his spirit will always rest with us, and his generosity will continue. Long live Roy, and we definitely would want to help the foundation to grow from strength to strength, and we would hope that we'd be able to help contribute to that.
Tonight we want to do a special recognition of someone who has taken Roy's mantle and worked with it and gone on. So Camille, we're going to ask you to come up because we want to thank you so much for all that you do for your mom, your sister, and everyone else. Camille, this is for you. We love you. God bless you.
Roy Hastick said, what a ride. He rode the hell out of this life. The hell out of it. He did not complain. Never saw him saying, woe is me. He will continue to move forward. And all he would say to all of you, ride life the way I'm riding it. And his legacy will live on. How many businesses started because of him compelling you to network? How many people got access to capital? And what he did every Dr. King's birthday, living in the memories of Dr. King, he will come to Brooklyn Borough Hall and hold those events. And he was sincere. You would go by his house and see his children, his daughters, and his lovely wife, who was always by his side. And he would just continue to pour things into you. And so his legacy must live on, because the physical transition can never get in the way of the spiritual existence. Our bodies may terminate, but our physical anatomy lives on forever. And as long as we mention his name, as long as we live up to his expectations, we will fulfill what he knew we could fulfill. And I'll tell you, you know, I always borrow from the words of probably one of the most prophetic prophets of our time, Jay-Z. Roy was hood for life. And you know, you could tell by his attitude, he was New York. And I just wanted to come in, no matter what I had to do today, to say to the daughters and to Mother Hastick that, you know, your husband meant so much to me. And he knew a lot of elected officials. He liked and loved them all, but he adored me. I was his favorite. I was his favorite. And, you know, just realizing that I'm a better person because he was in my life. And he poured into all of us. So let's continue to lift him up. Let's continue to reach out to young people and tell them networking works. Let's cross-pollinate in this room, and let's continue to show that networking works. His favorite saying over and over again, networking works.
Folks, this is my granddaughter. Do you believe this? This was a phenomenal event. And I really, really appreciate. First, I want to say thank you to Camille and Renee and Rolanda. Come forward. Come. Prior to Dad's passing and since then, I remember hearing Renee and Camille Camille in particular would come to the house and would answer the phone, the many phone calls that were coming in. And apparently people would ask to speak to me, and Camille would say, she's not available right now. What she didn't tell them was that my head was in a pillow, crying my eyes out for at least 2 months or more, just trying to figure out how am I going to manage without the love of my life for all these years. Whatever we did, we worked together. Many of you mentioned that this evening. We worked together, planning, organizing, and all of a sudden I felt as if the bottom had fallen out of my stomach. I don't have another way to explain it, but I was just, to say I was heartbroken gives you a little idea of what it meant. And I can share this with you because it's a human experience. And if you have not gone through this kind of separation and loss, I'm sure you have helped friends of yours, family members of yours. It's not easy. It really is not easy. And Camille and Renee planning this event tonight, along with Rolanda, is a real tribute to how much they loved their dad, they acknowledged his work, and inviting all of you. Several times I started to call them and say, do you need my help to plan the event? And I said, no, leave them alone. They're grown-ups. Where are they? Where are the grown-ups? I said, and look at the results. Give them a round of applause, please. Look at them.
And this again is in the spirit of the Hasticks. People are often unreasonable. They're illogical and they're self-centered. But forgive them. If you're kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. But be kind. If you're honest, if you're frank, people may cheat you. But be honest. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. But be happy. What you spend years building, someone may try to destroy overnight. But build. The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. But do good. Give the world the best you have, and it may never, ever be enough. But give the world your best. Because in the final analysis, it is between you and God, and it was never between you and them. Thank you very much for coming.